concepts to delivering, because what gets delivered is garbage. I don't ever understand it. I mean, most of the time, I don't want to say everything Microsoft is garbage. It's just from what they conceptually designed for some reason to be, not to be as sarcastic, is it doesn't seem to deliver, and I don't understand what the problem is with that.
Well, and right on that topic, that's one of the other complaints about Phone 7, to be quite honest. For those of you wondering why we're combining PC v Mac, it's because it didn't get done this week, and this is related to what we're talking with Ben about. So, the other thing they're complaining about is that it's running IE7 for all intents and purposes. IE9 is like what you're talking about. It's finally a good IE. How long? Took how many years? But it's not going on the mobile arena. It's like,
I just don't get it. Yeah.
It's like, because I mean, obviously,
Apple is in the opposite camp. Here's how I perceive Apple. Usually, Apple will come up with something. They have something cool, and it's deliverable, and it works to what they say. But then I go, what am I going to use that for? I don't need that. It's like they'll deliver something, and it's really neat. But then it doesn't. It's like it never makes it cross the finish line for me. It's like it does 8 out of the 10 items I needed to do. And it's like, here's the iPhone, but it doesn't copy paste. Does everything else well, except for make phone calls, of course. But we'll put that one aside. No copy and paste whatsoever. Okay, so it does all this other stuff well. And it's like you're talking about with the ecosystem and Apple locking it out for Linux. There's all these things that people would love to participate in the Apple ecosystem, and the things that they do deliver work well normally. But there's like this shortage of, the vision stops. It's just like...
No. It's not. It's like, let's be fair. It's not that the vision stops. It's that the Apple vision is everybody's on a Mac. Everybody's living in the iWorld. There is nothing beyond the iWorld. This is a mythical universe. We've never heard of or seen any proof of its existence.
Apple's philosophy, obviously they're on Intel. They write a lot of software now that's running on Windows, whether people appreciate that or not. I mean, I'm just saying the principle of it, I'm not...
Actually, yes, there's a lot of software on the Windows side that is built on top of Apple software, and that is true, especially when it comes to video and other stuff. However, and I do want to get your 2 cents on this since you brought it up, this is something that is becoming a real concern as of late, because a lot of stuff was built on top of QuickTime. More specifically, QuickTime 7, which had these hooks that let you hook stuff in and build stuff on top of it. Mysteriously, QuickTime 10 removed all these hooks. So none of this software works anymore, and going forward it isn't going to.
Right. Well, it's because they moved QuickTime, the majority of it, out of Carbon, which was C. And then you could have hooks into it via the C API. And then now it's really, I think they write a custom top layer for Windows. And then on the Mac, I believe it's just Cocoa all the way. So.
Right, but this is stuff that can only be taken advantage of on the Mac side, and basically what this little simple change entirely at Apple's whim has done is, like you say, all of this software that was stupid enough to build on top of Apple software is now dead-ended, has to completely go back to the drawing board or become Mac-only software, which basically has taken this entire industry by the balls.
Right.
Which is not good for the end user or the industry. And the general consensus I've been getting in talking with the companies that developed this software is they're like, we're never making the mistake of ever trusting Apple with this kind of key thing again. Because it's like they see it as a betrayal.
Let's put it this way. Wait a minute. Microsoft does the same thing too.
No. I'm not saying Microsoft hasn't done the same bullshit. It's.
I know it's hard for a company. See, Linux is in a iWorld still yet what is predominantly still built on C and C++.
Yeah.
There is no special C# or Objective-C layer, or the Microsoft actually has more. I mean, Microsoft has VB and then C#, which are customarily specific for Windows. And really on OS 10, it's predominantly Objective-C. Well, you can tailor your system and try to get programmers to adhere to your rules more so in developing for your operating system to give a smoother experience. Windows has gotten smoother because of the new VB standards and C# standards. They're trying to get away from what you're after, which is letting more hooks in, to try to, which is it is hurtful. I agree, because there are many good programmers that can write great stuff with lower level languages and can port them over to other operating systems relatively easily, and don't have the constraints, because once you start playing in the realm of the operating system's favorite APIs into the operating system for development, you're really using their framework, their limitations, their rules, their tunnels, their ports,
right.
Everything. And sure, it can give. It's just pros and cons on that. But I think everybody's doing that. And I think Linux will eventually get there too. I bet you somebody's just going to build just a kick-ass top layer.
I'm sure it's coming at some point, but if anything, we're making the best case ever for cross-compilers. Because really the only solution to this problem is cross-compilers. Now, where it gets to be a problem is when the core base of something suddenly makes a change like this. Because and this has happened in other industries too, and it shakes the whole industry up. It basically breaks the industry. It's like, on a side note, everybody's afraid to death Oracle's going to do this with MySQL.
With who?
With MySQL.
Oh yeah, I know.
Because
and Java as well. Although I'd say Microsoft put such a gigantic obstacle against Java. And
honestly, I don't see Java being what it once was. Even in Linux, stuff is more Python now than Java. So
yeah, Python is pretty cool, and Ruby is also out there for quite a few applications. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Java,
honestly, I think a lot of people would be happy to see Java die, and I think
widely used. I mean, it's still. I mean, today, if someone asks me which language should I do, I always say C++ and Java. Today, Java is extremely widely used. Is that going to change? Probably. But
I think Oracle pretty much assured that it will. But yeah, that's okay. Where were we? Getting back on topic before we go off on Oh Dear Lord land, because we don't really have time today. So it's, like we said, the iPhone heading to Verizon rumors, iPads going everywhere. Getting back on iOS stuff, I have mixed feelings about this. I don't know if you have anything. Actually, because we're coming on time, let's do this first. Do you think this is the beginning of a tide that's going to start to come, or do you think this is an isolated incident? I'm talking about the Adidas contract supposedly being canceled with iOS and iAds.
Oh man, I'm surprised that all iAds is to me is Apple refusing to run Flash.
Well, you see it too.
That's all iAds is. All iAds is because they won't run Flash. They need a interactive. What are the words I'm looking for? Content generation for advertisement, rather than having just really lowball and low-key advertisements. And I've always seen iAds like that. And if a company wants to pay $1 million for entry level, go for it. I hope they make money.
Well, it's like, no, that's not what this is. This was a $10 million contract Adidas has with it, and basically because of an inability to work with Apple and what Apple was dictating that their advertising should be, they've pulled out of the contract.
Well, there you go. Watch my videos on iAds. I even talk about this. I was like, I went all over. I said, who is this panel that's going to decide what is, I forget the words that Jobs used. It was like, what is creative enough and what is interactive enough. I mean, Jobs chose to use extremely subjective terms in terms
on purpose, because if they create clear criteria, people will meet them. If they create overly subjective criteria, then they can just say, we don't like it.
Yep.
And that's exactly.
I don't know. I think the price, the entry level is too high.
Well, it's like I have mixed feelings about this, and this is one of the few times you're ever going to hear me speak good of Apple. I get what they're trying to do. I do. The idea is they're going to raise the bar for advertising so that it isn't just noise and that it's actually advertising people want to pay attention to and play with. That's a I know. That's a noble goal and all, but the reality is you can't enforce that because that's not the way companies work. It's not the way advertising works. You can make suggestions, but at the end of the day, they're giving you money to sell their product how they want to sell it. And if you start telling them that their multi-million-dollar ad campaign is stupid and should go back to the drawing board and be completely reworked, they're going to say, F you, we have too much money invested in this already. We are not reworking it at this point. Take our money or get the fuck off.
I know. It's ridiculous. Apple's probably going to change. They always do. They come out super strict and everybody supports them while the rest of the world says, you'll see, and then all of a sudden it changes.
No, the Apple fanboys support them. The rest of the world kind of snickers and go, well, let's see how long this takes to crumble. It's like...
Dude, I was just like, even with the policies of the stupid cross-compilers. You know, Steve Jobs totally had to eat crow on that. Of course they're going to freaking allow cross-compilers. And you know, get the hell out of town. With all these stupid little mantra sayings and stuff.
I don't know. I thought they might have been able to get away with that for 6 to 12 months if Steve Jobs hadn't published that letter on Apple.com that basically said, fuck you, Adobe. That was pretty much what torpedoed it. That's like
reality's always going to set in. I'm sorry, the magical kingdom doesn't hold. I mean, reality always wins, and yeah, it's just Apple always plays it. You know, they play their fiddle, and I like what they build for a lot of products, and I think they do it very well. But sometimes they just are way out in left field and need to come back in.
Well, this goes back to what I've said, and I haven't actually had a chance to discuss this, but a lot of people have been asking me as a late, although I don't think it's ever happened on camera yet, like, what do I think would happen to Apple in a post-Steve Jobs world? And my honest assessment is, while I don't personally like the company, that could be the best thing that ever happened to Apple. It could also be the thing that kills Apple. But right now, one of Apple's greatest enemies is this stuff we're talking about here. That and a lot of this sources from Steve Jobs. I don't know how much of it's from Steve Jobs and how much of it's the old Apple company. But if Apple could lose that, if they could lose this fuck everyone Apple first mentality and just focus on making good products, they could actually be a pretty okay company. Because they have a lot of good ingredients.
They're an okay company. They're a great company to me. I mean, I will critique them and criticize them when they screw up, and more often. But Steve Jobs is an asset and a liability.
He's their greatest friend and their worst enemy all rolled into one.
Things like the iPhone and reception stuff is that he markets perfection. And therefore he creates the standard that allows easier attack to come upon it. Versus being more realistic in things. People wouldn't necessarily... In other words, the whole antenna gate would have never existed. And Apple has a real problem with that, but I understand pursuing